CBS Y&R Restless Spoilers. At Genoa City Club, the illusion of discretion has always been a fragile one, sustained not by soundproof walls, but by the arrogance of those who believe power grants them privacy. On this particular evening, that illusion collapsed in a way that sent tremors through the social and corporate heart of Genoa City. Jack and Nikki did not arrive with suspicion or strategy. They arrived out of routine, out of habit, out of lives so long entwined with this place that its corridors felt like extensions of their own histories. What they encountered instead was a confession never meant for their ears. A quiet admission spoken with the fatal assumption that loyalty could be compartmentalized and betrayal justified if framed as necessity. Michael's words, offered without awareness of his unintended audience, revealed that he had provided Victor with evidence strategic, damaging, decisive evidence that lived not as a neutral legal obligation, but as a calculated act that favored Newman Enterprises. In that instant, the balance of trust shifted irreversibly, and Jack felt the familiar burn of betrayal rise with an intensity that surprised even him. Because this was not a rival striking from across the battlefield, but an ally stepping aside to let the blade fall. Jack's reaction was immediate and visceral, shaped by decades of corporate warfare and personal sacrifice, by the belief that loyalty, once earned, was not a temporary contract, but a moral stance. Michael's actions were not merely a professional misstep or a gray area legal maneuver. They represented a fracture in the unspoken code that bound those who stood against Victor's relentless dominion. The anger that erupted from Jack was fueled by more than the evidence itself. It was fueled by the realization that trust, so painstakingly rebuilt after years of rivalry and uneasy truces, had been leveraged and discarded. In Jack's eyes, Michael's decision did not exist in isolation. It was a choice that strengthened Victor's hand at a moment when restraint and balance were desperately needed. The confrontation that followed was not loud by necessity, but by inevitability, as Jack demanded accountability for an act he viewed as nothing less than calculated disloyalty. The Genoa City Club, accustomed to witnessing quiet power plays disguised as cordial exchanges, suddenly became a stage for raw, unfiltered reckoning. Victor, sensing the shift in energy even before it fully erupted, did what he has always done best. He claimed the moment. His confirmation of Michael's role was delivered not with subtlety, but with unmistakable satisfaction. A declaration that the game had been played exactly as he intended and that the outcome favored the House of Newman. Victor did not merely acknowledge Michael's assistance. He celebrated it as proof of his enduring influence, his ability to command allegiance even from those who once positioned themselves as neutral or oppositional. To Victor, Michael's actions were not betrayal, but recognition of where true power resides and where survival is guaranteed. His triumph was not just legal or corporate. It was psychological, aimed squarely at Jack and Nikki alike, a reminder that every alliance in Genoa City exists at Victor's discretion. In that moment, Victor did not see consequences. He saw confirmation that his methods, however ruthless, remained effective. Michael, standing at the center of this gathering storm, was forced to confront the human cost of a decision he may have rationalized as necessary. Whether his response was tinged with genuine remorse or carefully constructed justification, it was clear that he understood the magnitude of what had been exposed. He did not deny his actions, nor could he convincingly minimize them. Instead, his demeanor reflected the complicated reality of a man who has spent his life navigating the space between ethics and survival, between personal loyalty and professional obligation. Michael's attempt to explain himself framed as duty, as inevitability, as the lesser of two evils simply underscored the painful truth that intentions rarely soften the impact of betrayal. In the eyes of Jack and Nikki, justification was not redemption. It was an admission that Michael had chosen his side long before the confession ever left his lips. For Nikki, the revelation cut deeper than corporate maneuvering ever could. What unfolded before her was not merely another example of Victor manipulating those around him, but a stark reminder that she herself remained vulnerable to the same deceptions she had endured time and again. Watching Victor openly gloat, watching Michael stand in the aftermath of his decision, Nikki felt the familiar ache of betrayal resurface with renewed force. This was not about business. This was about trust eroded beyond repair. Victor's actions, once again, demonstrated his willingness to sacrifice emotional truth for strategic victory, and Nikki found herself confronting the painful realization that love, in Victor's world, is always secondary to control. The disappointment that surged through her was not quiet or contained. It was overwhelming, sharpened by the knowledge that she had believed, hoped, perhaps foolishly, that this time might be different. When Nikki declared the end of her marriage, it was not a dramatic impulse but a culmination. Her words, spoken with clarity and resolve, reverberated through the club with a finality that silenced even the most seasoned observers. This was not a threat, not a bargaining chip, not another chapter in a cycle of separation and reconciliation. It was a definitive severing born from exhaustion rather than rage, from clarity rather than despair. Nikki's decision was as much an act of self-preservation as it was a condemnation of Victor's choices. By ending the marriage in that moment, before witnesses and whispers, she reclaimed agency that had been steadily eroded by years of manipulation. The shock that rippled through Genoa's City Club was immediate and profound, as patrons realized they were witnessing not just a marital rupture, but a seismic shift in one of the city's most enduring power structures. The atmosphere within the club transformed instantly, curiosity and speculation filling the space left by stunned silence. Eyes followed every movement, conversations halted mid-sentence, and the weight of what had just transpired settled heavily over the room. Genoa City thrives on secrets, but it feeds on spectacle, and this was spectacle of the highest order. The public nature of Nikki's declaration ensured that there would be no quiet retraction, no private negotiation to soften the blow. This was a reckoning delivered openly, a message sent not only to Victor but to everyone who had ever underestimated Nikki's resolve. In leaving alongside Jack, united not by romance but by shared disillusionment and moral clarity, Nikki reinforced the significance of her choice. Their departure was not hurried, but deliberate, a visible rejection of the game being played behind them. Left behind, Victor and Michael stood amid the aftermath, confronted by the consequences they had either dismissed or failed to fully anticipate. Victor, though outwardly composed, could not entirely mask the reality that this victory carried a cost he could not easily control. Michael, exposed and isolated, faced the sobering realization that justification offers little shelter when trust is publicly broken. The Genoa City Club slowly resumed its rhythm, but the damage lingered, embedded in whispered conversations and calculated glances. What began as a private confession had evolved into a defining moment, one that reshaped alliances, dismantled illusions, and left no participant untouched. In Genoa City, power may shift with every revelation, but the echoes of betrayal endure far longer than any single triumph. The air in the living room of the Newman Ranch was thick with a silence that felt heavier than the velvet drapes framing the windows. Nikki Newman stood by the fireplace, her gaze fixed on the flickering embers, but her mind was miles away, entrenched in the cold, digital war her husband had declared on Jabot. The recent days had been a blur of tension. Victor's obsession with using the stolen AI programma weapon originally crafted by Kane Ashby and pilfered by Phyllis had crossed a line she could no longer ignore. It wasn't just business anymore. It was a vendetta that threatened to burn down everything, including the fragile peace she had fought so hard to maintain. She turned as the heavy oak doors to Victor's study creaked open. The sound of low, urgent voices drifted into the hallway. Nikki moved instinctively, her heels silent on the plush Persian rug, stopping just short of the doorframe. The algorithms are adapting faster than we anticipated, Victor. Michael Baldwin's voice was unmistakable, laced with a rare tremor of unease. If we deploy the next phase against Jabot's servers now, while Jack has them offline, the damage won't just be financial. It will be catastrophic. We're talking about permanent data corruption. Federal crimes, Victor. I do not care about the collateral damage, Michael. Victor's voice boomed, the familiar baritone roughened by frustration. Jack Abbott thinks he can outsmart me by shutting down his company. He is a fool. I want him crushed. The AI will find the back doors he missed. Make it happen. Nikki pressed a hand to her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her fingers trembling as she hit the record button on the voice memo app. She held her breath, capturing every damning word as Victor detailed the specific unauthorized access codes they planned to utilize codes that would undeniably link Newman Enterprises to a cybercrime of massive proportions. Victor, listen to me. Michael tried again, his tone shifting from legal counsel to concerned friend. This isn't just aggressive corporate strategy. It's too far. If this gets out, if the SEC or the FBI traces this signature back to this office, there is no amount of money that can bury it. Are you losing your nerve, Michael? Victor sneered. Because if you are, I can find someone else who understands loyalty. There was a long pause. Nikki leaned in closer, straining to hear Michael's response. I am loyal, Victor, Michael said, his voice barely a whisper. But I am also a lawyer who knows when the walls are closing in. Just give me until the morning to run the final diagnostics. Don't launch tonight. You have until dawn, Victor snapped. Now get out. Nikki pulled back instantly, slipping into the shadows of the adjacent hallway just as Michael exited the study. He looked haggard, rubbing his temples as he walked past her hiding spot. He paused for a fraction of a second, his eyes darting toward the shadow where she stood, and for a moment, Nikki thought she'd been caught. But Michael merely sighed, a look of profound guilt washing over his features, and continued toward the front door. He hadn't seen her, or perhaps, in his hesitation, he had chosen not to. The realization crystallized in Nikki's mind. Michael was the weak link. He was terrified. And she held the smoking gun in her hand. An hour later, the atmosphere at the Abbott mansion was a stark contrast to the ranch. The house was dark, save for a single lamp burning in the study where Jack Abbott sat surrounded by piles of legal documents and tech reports. He looked exhausted. The weight of shutting down Jabbath's father's legacy etched into the deep lines of his face. When Nikki walked in unannounced, Jack didn't even look up. If you're here to deliver another one of Victor's threats, Nikki, save your breath. I have nothing left to say to him. I'm not here for Victor, Nikki said, her voice steady as she closed the door behind her. I'm here to stop him. Jack looked up then, skepticism warring with hope in his eyes. We've been down this road, Nikki. You can't control him. I can this time. She placed her phone on the desk between them and pressed play. Jack's eyes widened as Victor's voice filled the room, cold and calculating, detailing the illegal cyber assault. The recording ended with Michael's plea and Victor's ruthless dismissal. The silence that followed was deafening. This is it, Jack whispered, looking at the phone as if it were a bomb. This is proof of intent to commit federal cyber espionage. With this, I could send the FBI to his door tonight. No, Nikki said sharply. That's not what we're going to do. Jack stood up, his face flushing with anger. Nikki, he's trying to destroy my family. This is the silver bullet. I can end this war permanently. I can put him behind bars and destroy my family in the process. Nikki's voice rose, matching his intensity. Think, Jack. If you use this legally, Victor goes to prison. Newman Enterprises collapses. Victoria, Neck, the grandchildren, they all suffer. The scandal would be uncontainable. I won't let you burn my family to save yours. Then why did you bring this to me? Jack demanded, throwing his hands up. Because we are going to force a ceasefire, Nikki said, her eyes steel. You are going to agree to my terms. We use this to corner him. He stops the attack, he destroys the AI program, and he leaves Jabbo alone. Forever. In exchange, this recording never sees the light of day. Jack paced the room, running a hand through his graying hair. You're asking me to blackmail the most dangerous man in Genoa City. If he finds out, he won't have a choice, Nikki interrupted. He cares about his legacy more than anything, more than his vengeance against you. But I need you to stand with me, Jack. I need you to trust me. Do not call the police. Let me handle Victor." Jack looked at her, seeing the fierce determination in her blue eyes, same fire that had drawn them together so many years ago. He took a deep breath, the fight draining out of him as he realized she was right. A legal war would leave no winners, only ruins. "Okay," Jack said softly. "We do it your way. But if he balks, if he tries to double-cross us, he won't," Nikki vowed. The confrontation took place the following morning in Victor's office at Newman Towers. The city skyline gleamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a testament to the empire Victor had built. He sat behind his desk, looking every bit the king on his throne, until Nikki and Jack walked in together. Victor's eyes narrowed instantly. "What is this? A reunion?" "I am busy, Jack. Get out of my office." "We need to talk, Victor," Nikki said, stepping forward before Jack could respond. She placed her phone on his desk, just as she had done with Jack. "I have nothing to discuss with him," Victor growled. "You do now," Nikki said, and pressed play. Victor sat in stone-faced silence as his own voice echoed back to him. He didn't flinch, but Nikki saw the subtle tightening of his jaw, the way his knuckles whitened as he gripped the armrests of his chair. When the recording finished, the silence stretched out, taut as a wire. "You recorded your own husband," Victor said finally, his voice dangerously low. He looked at Nikki with a mixture of betrayal and shock. "You would betray me for him." "I am saving you from yourself." Nikki slammed her hand on the desk, startling both men. "This isn't business, Victor. This is madness. You are risking prison. You are risking the reputation of this entire company. And for what? To settle a score that should have been buried decades ago?" "You think I am afraid of a recording," Victor scoffed, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. "It's not just the recording, Victor." Jack stepped in, his voice calm, bolstered by Nikki's strength. "It's Michael. He's wavering. You heard him. How long before he cuts a deal to save his own license? If Nikki has this, imagine what the feds could find if they looked." Victor's gaze snapped to Jack, then back to Nikki. He stood up slowly, towering over them. "You are bluffing. You would never destroy me, Nikki." "Try me," Nikki challenged, her chin high. "I love you, Victor. But I will not watch you destroy yourself and everyone around you with this hate. If you do not delete that AI program and issue a public statement that Newman has no interest in Jabbat's current struggles, I will walk out of here and hand this phone to the district attorney. And I will leave you. For good this time." The ultimatum hung in the air. Victor looked at his wife, searching for any sign of hesitation. He found none. He looked at Jack, seeing not fear, but a resolved unity with Nikki that unsettled him more than any business rival ever could. He realized he was cornered. The reputational damage would be irreversible. The legal consequences, with Michael already shaky, were a tangible threat. Slowly, Victor sat back down. The fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a cold, calculating resignation. He reached for the intercom on his desk. "Michael," Victor said into the speaker, his voice void of emotion. "Come in here and bring the portable drive with the Ashby project." A moment later, Michael entered, looking confused as he saw Jack and Nikki. "Victor, what's going on?" "We are terminating the AI initiative," Victor said flatly. "It is too volatile. Scrap the servers. Destroy the drive." Michael's eyes widened, darting between the three of them. He sensed the shift immediately of unspoken power dynamic that had just been rewritten. Are you sure, Victor?" "Do it," Victor barked. Michael nodded quickly, taking the drive from his pocket physical key to the weapon and looking at Jack. "I'll handle the deletion immediately." "And the feud," Nikki pressed, not letting up. Victor glared at Jack. "I have more important matters to attend to than kicking a dog while he is down. Jabot is of no concern to me." It was the closest thing to a surrender Jack would ever get. He nodded, a wave of relief nearly buckling his knees. "Thank you, Nikki," Jack said quietly. He turned to Victor. "It's over." As Jack and Michael left the room, leaving the husband and wife alone, the tension shifted. Victor stood and walked to the window, his back to Nikki. "You played a dangerous game today, my baby," Victor said, his voice heavy. "I played to win," Nikki replied, walking up behind him and placing a hand on his shoulder. She could feel the tension radiating off him, but she didn't pull away. "And I did it to save the man I love, not the monster he was becoming." Victor turned, looking down at her. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but there was something else to a grudging respect. She had outmaneuvered him, not with malice, but with a fierce, protective love that he couldn't deny. He covered her hand with his own. "Don't ever do it again," he warned, though the bite was gone from his tone. "Then don't give me a reason to," Nikki countered softly. She stood there, beside the man who ruled the city, knowing that today, the true power in Genoa City didn't reside in the chair behind the desk, but in the woman standing beside it. She had stopped a war, saved a friend, and perhaps, just perhaps, saved her husband's soul from the abyss one more time.